I'm Lesley.
And I'm Tim.
From Prince Edward County, Ontario, Canada. Picton, Rosehaven Yarn Shop. Not in the shop, obviously. We're in the backyard. We found another corner to hide.
It's all green screen. Oh, this is all fake. Here, it's all,
and the wind,
none of it's
just a
real.
wind machine. And the rustling in the bushes beside us is Milo.
Milo's looking for
Frogs,
snakes
probably.
and frogs in the bushes, and there is some rumbling going on because we're in the midst of
kind of thunderstorms, sort of flowing past, but they're they're not really hitting. Though we did get a little flash.
We had torrential rain a minute ago, right? Like an hour or so ago.
It was nice. Down. Grass feels nice and cool under my bare toes. So, what have you been knitting?
What have I been knitting? I do a couple of things. I don't have any of that with me though. Yeah. The same things I've been knitting for the past how many episodes?
Yeah.
I'm about to start the heel on my socks, which is nice. Good. And I'm almost finished the back panel of my sweater.
The rigging.
And the rigging, Fiona Ellis rigging sweater.
Yes. From
Rib magazine. And I am not quite, I'm probably about 10 inches into my tie. 8 inches.
And you haven't touched the vest and
tie.
No, not since, because I took the needle.
Not since you took the needle tips.
I took the needle tips and finished my project and put them back in the needle kit, and that was months ago. Yeah.
I have too many projects. I can't knit them all at once.
Seriously focused, Tim.
I worked hard.
You did.
I worked hard on my socks this past weekend because of what I was doing, but we'll get to that in a second.
Yes.
I
just finished this hat. It's worsted weight, and I had some of my blue face Leicester that I dyed, and then I carried a little strand of Barocco's Andine Mist, which is an alpaca blend. So it's this cute hat, and I made a tassel for it instead of a pom-pom.
Whoa, that was close.
So I tasseled it instead. It's called Slouchy No Slouch. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. But it's kind of cute. It's gonna be warm. It's comfortable. And the interesting thing, what I really liked about this is the ribbing. It's actually cabled, 2 stitches every other row, every 2 stitches. It was a little insane, but it was only for 2.5 inches, and it's so pretty looking. Like, it's like twisty looking. I thought it was the fake twisted rib cable. I'm just going to move it so you can't touch it over here. And it wasn't. It was actual real cable, but it wasn't that bad. It was okay. Little pom-pom. No, sorry, not pom-pom, tassel. And
tassel? Isn't it a tassel?
Tassel, I guess, depending on your ancestral makeup.
Really? Somebody actually says tassel?
Yes. If you ask my dad
I'm not
and my
gonna
nana,
tussle
they
with
would
you
both
about it.
say they would say tossel instead of tassel. I think. Tossel. Well, tussle is something completely different. Now it looks like one of those guys in the canoe.
I'm a coureur de bois.
Yes, the Canadian, French Canadian canoe dudes that mapped Canada. I can't wait what they're called.
I just said it, coureur de bois.
Really, that's what it is? It doesn't sound right.
All right.
There's a special name for their hat, though. I don't quite understand why with the floppy red hat.
Their official hat isn't just called a Slouchy McNot Slouch? Is that what you called it?
It's Slouchy Not Slouch.
Slouchy McNot Slouch.
So when I was at Rhinebeck, we're not going this year. We decided we're not going to go. Too much stuff. Too much crazy stuff. I wore one of my crazy hats, and I haven't knit them in a long time, so I'm like, I got to get back to it. So I crocheted curls, because I think they're the most fun thing to have on the top of the thing. And I used a whole bunch of little bits of yarn. The problem is I don't have any left to make the I usually do braided things with tassels at the end.
Tassels.
But
it looks like, it almost looks like a little cityscape. Like these are like
little windows.
little windows in buildings, and then there's like a second floor or whatever.
I think it was 80 stitches.
It's neat.
And it's interesting because 80 stitches was always my go-to. Worst weight, 80 stitches, 4.5 needles. But you know what? I've gotten tighter in my knitting. I'm not such a crazy loose knitter, and that barely fits on my head. And I am an average size head, so.
Well, it's not going to fit on my head, I'll tell you that.
No. No. But the colors turned out really nice, and it's all little bits of scrappy old yarn that I've had. So since then, I've been working on my F-bomb because we're making kits up. So if you're interested, the pattern I believe is going to go on, I think Elizabeth's going to have it already next week. So it's going to be on there. So, okay, so this is the explosion. See, I'm still trying to write the rest of the FU. You can figure out what the rest of it's going to say.
It's censored. We can't display that on.
This is the little bombshell, right? The F. Okay, hold on. I will stuff. So while I'm stuffing the, here, you hold that, or stick it in my, I'll stick it in my hair. That's what I usually do with them when I can find them. So this all gets stuffed inside of the bomb casing. So then you can toss it at someone when they throw an F-bomb at you, or the words.
Or you want to throw an F-bomb at them.
Yes.
When they make you angry.
Is that when you do
can
it?
Go,
or is it when someone actually says the bad word?
No, you're saying the bad word, right? Isn't that? I mean, I don't know. I've never.
I don't know. You've been F-bombed.
I've never used an F-bomb in
know.
this way.
I guess we'll have to. Yeah, I think you're using an F-bomb. There. Okay. Stuff it in. So there's the F-bomb. Ignore the thread because that's going to the words. There's the little fuse. It's so cool. And then it's like explosion. F you. I could just leave it at that. I'm taking it to Twist this weekend to hopefully show people and sell, because I have this is Lang yarn, sock yarn that's like has that cool flame gradient. It's kind of perfect, and that's what we used. You get these little spools of thread in the Lang shawl balls because they want you to carry extra thread through the strand of thread, so it in your heel and your toe to keep it stronger so you don't wear it through. And this was just some black acrylic DK and some white acrylic DK for that. So I just think it's the funnest thing, and I mean really it knits up pretty fast. I did have to block this aggressively, so
Elizabeth is furiously finishing the pattern so that we might have it for Twist this
tomorrow if we can. We have the unedited version, which is perfectly fine. It works, but she wants it looking pretty and professional and stuff, which is absolutely. And I was felting last weekend? No, 2 weeks ago, because you were away. And this is the one I just finished. And it's my hand-dyed silk. It's a really silvery gray. It's hard to kind of see in the light. And then I did a whole bunch of swirl felted over top of it, and it's got like openings. What I'm going to do, I'm going to show you the back so you can actually see better the actual layout of the silk. So I used 3 panels of the Habitai, and then this is actually silk gauze down here. So it makes a, oh, it still smells really good. So I wet felted it all. So it makes this really cool shawl. So that's what I've been doing.
Good.
Yes. And what did you do this weekend? You had a much more fun, exciting weekend because I worked the entire weekend and you got to go and hang out.
While Lesley was hard at work doing all these things, I was relaxing just north of here at Cabin Boy Knits in around Sterling for a men's knit retreat. Yeah. So it was like Thursday evening till Sunday morning, so it's like a 4-day retreat, which was fabulous. There was about a dozen of us there, and we were just knitting and eating.
Lots of eating and knitting.
You know, swimming in the pool. And it was awesome.
In classes.
And there were some classes there. We had some fun classes. I can show you some of the things that I did. We did some natural dyeing. So Friday, let me just start there. Friday morning, we went and visited the Grey Heron in Belleville, a nice little yarn shop there.
It's fairly new.
And they actually had, and I totally missed it. I don't know where I was, but they actually had some yarn dyed specifically for us because they knew we were coming. So they dyed some lumberjack yarn, and I'm gonna get some.
Christopher likes his plaids.
Yeah, I have to get some, and then I can show it to you because it was quite nice. But I missed it while we were in there because I don't pay attention.
Distracted by.
I'm distracted by everything. I'm distracted right now by the dog who looks like a wet. He's all wet,
soaking wet,
and now he's covered in burrs too. So that's good. Anyways, so this was a nice. A little trip to Grey Heron there, and then we went to the break room, which is a little coffee shop / bicycle repair place.
Kind of an interesting
that actually has a traveling barber coming there.
She needs a haircut. She's there once a week.
So so we went there, had some coffee, and then we came to Rosehaven and shopped around Rosehaven
all the
for a
boys
little
came
while.
to see me.
Then we went back up to Belleville to Signal Brewery and had lunch there, which was
out on the deck.
Fabulous. They have a great big outside deck there.
It's
you
on
sit
the
on
river.
the Moira River. The Moira River. And that was great. So that was sort of Friday, and then Friday afternoon we started mixing up dyes in order to dye some yarn. And we had yarn from Topsy Farms, which we talked about in our last
on Amherst Island
podcast.
It's not too far from here.
Yeah, so Christopher had a bunch of... Christopher is the guy who is running the retreat.
He is Cabin Boy Knits.
He is Cabin Boy Knits. And he had a bunch of... so we basically made a bunch of dye pots. We got the dyes sort of ready. So we had coffee. So he had a big thing of coffee, which he got from the break room.
Cold, old coffee or something.
Right, yeah, great big thing, a tub of coffee. We did blue spruce, so you just nip the ends off the spruce, the little blue ends off the spruce tree, and you fill a pot with that. And then we had an echinacea one. He had a beautiful echinacea garden, which we destroyed by cutting off all the flower heads and put them in a pot. And then there was another one, which was... Black-Eyed Susan and oh man, I can't remember. Basil. No. Well, red basil was another one entirely, but there was a fifth one that was Black-Eyed Susan and something else in the pot together. So there were 5 different dyes there. Natural dyes. And then we learned how to basically you put it in the pot, you fill it with water, and you sort of simmer it away for.
And the mordant that you use.
We simmered it away for like 45 minutes or so. You don't want to boil it, I guess. You just and we used alum for the most part, but he also had some iron mordant.
So basically to make the iron, I'm assuming it's the same way we did the copper last time, which is you put pieces of real iron into vinegar and you let it sit for like a month or so?
Yeah, so he had some
it's
iron.
It's highly poisonous. You have to be super careful. Like, God, you don't want your pets getting into the bucket.
Well, he was using very large mason jars with some rusty old drill bits in there. Big augury-like drill bits, and then it was filled with a water-vinegar mixture, one of them, and the other one had no vinegar in it, as far as I understand. But I could be wrong on that. Again, I don't pay attention. I'm bad. But anyways, so we had 2 of them there. I know.
Because you had one of your dyes didn't really work out. I wonder if that's because of the mordant, because that's usually...
It is possible. The mordant is what adheres the color to the yarn.
Yes.
So we did have some that didn't work out. But we prepped all the dye pots Friday, and then we actually did the dyeing Saturday afternoon because the dye wanted to sit overnight and get all saturated and concentrated and all that kind of stuff. So in the morning, they did a little sock class. I did not do the sock class, and I really should have, because they actually made entire socks. Like sometimes sock classes can go over several days because it takes a while to get between the toe to the heel and then the ankle to the cuff, that sort of thing. So they made these wee little baby ones, so they were able to do the cast on in the toe, the increases in the toe, and then knit for a little, and then, yeah.
Did they use Turkish cast on?
I don't even know, because I didn't go to that. And then they did the heel, they did the cuffs and everything, so they had these great little socks. And so from that, and it was all doing it in the magic loop, so they're knitting in the round and that sort of thing. And Bill, oh man, what's Bill's last name? Bill did the teaching of that sock class, and I spent the morning actually outside sketching.
Do you know what Bill's Ravelry name is? Do you know any of the guys' Ravelry names?
Yes, I don't have it written down.
But we're going to post it.
And it's on my phone, which is recording us, so I can't look.
Okay.
But anyways, yeah, I sat and sketched. So the whole retreat was taking place in Cabin Boy's in Christopher's cabin, which is two log cabins kind of put together. One was a blacksmith shop, and the other was like a horse stable.
No, it was a sheep barn.
A sheep barn.
It was literally a sheep barn. Yeah.
I thought it was a... Oh, I'm thinking because there was a shot of the blacksmith.
Yeah.
There's a photograph with a horse in the black. Anyways.
They were brought to the site. They were rebuilt on site together and created into
they kind of made like a little joining thing between them with a staircase and stuff.
It's exactly what you would envision with the big front porch. It's just...
Really, really beautiful
and the location is perfect. It looks like
it's really sort of secluded in the middle of this wooded area, so you can kind of walk in the woods and stuff. It's really, really nice, really nice. And so yeah, that afternoon then we did the dyeing. So we got our little mini skeins and we put them in the dye pots, and then they had to like sit there for a while, and you're like cooking it in the dye pot. And
oh, before you go another step, we should have mentioned, in order to find more information on Men's Knitting Retreat, the website is...
Oh yeah. It doesn't say here.
It doesn't say.
I don't have any of
so this was the men's... There is a group, I believe it's out of the
Here's
US.
Their little logo.
And it's actually, I think it's actually Men's Knitting Retreat. If you Google Men's Knitting Retreat, they actually have a general website. Christopher set up Men's Knitting Retreat North 2018. There was one in Michigan that Christopher was just at. There's one apparently in
the Adirondacks.
In the Adirondacks that sells out lightning fast.
In less than 10 minutes.
And it is men only.
Will sell out.
And yeah, and then there's a few other ones here and there, and they're all run as individual people run them. But they're under, I think it's under like the source of the website to help promote it.
They've got a group on Ravelry as well. Like you can search for the Men's Knitting Retreat on Ravelry and that sort of thing. But we'll put all the links in the description.
And if you're a guy knitter, just so you know, these knitting retreats are definitely, even if you don't know anyone you're to go with, everyone is so low-keyed and friendly. I mean, I've been doing them for 5 years. This is the first time you've gone to one, and you were nervous about going because you were going by yourself.
Well, you don't really know anybody necessarily. Yeah. Like, it was my first time going.
But it seems like the personality is just like people...
Oh, now my knee is cold.
The people are just... Everyone is just in that... People that go to these knitting retreats are pretty out...
Here's the thing that I found
they like the community. That's the whole point of going to these.
It's the community.
They like the community. So you're going to meet people that are going to like everybody.
Here's the thing that I found really interesting is that normally I'm knitting with a group of women, right? Like when we go to the, Lesley at Rosehaven has Tuesday night knit and natter, which I will go to on occasion, and sometimes on a very rare occasion there's another guy there, but I'm really like the only guy, and it's great to see all of the women sharing tips and hints and tricks and how do I do this, and they'll teach each other and show each other all this stuff. It's a very it makes you it makes you appreciate
skills
the skills and just that sort of like, I don't know how to describe it, that camaraderie that you get with the women and the sharing and all that kind of stuff. And it's actually the same thing with men. It was really, really great to see these guys teaching each other, stopping and, you know, giving each other tips and like, how do I do this? And like, and it was all very open and accepting, and I don't know what even the words are. It felt almost maternal in a way, right? Like,
yeah,
it's not like, well, I don't know how to do that. Hey, you gotta figure it out. No, they were like, here, you know, get the thing and make sure and make, you know, it was really great.
Because even our knit retreats in April, where I don't have teachers, we all end up learning something. Because someone will just say, hey, I found this really cool thing, this really, like the crochet. Someone was talking to me about the crochet bind off, and I'm like, what? And so everyone's got a little something to teach. And
there were a few of us there who are involved in stores. Like one guy, Mitch, runs his own shop, which we'll talk about. I actually interviewed him, which we'll put on here as well. And like Colin, who works at Artisanthropy, and we're all kind of talking about our experiences in knit shops and sharing, oh, you know, we like to make samples to sell this, you know, just sharing ideas and all that kind of stuff. It was nice. It was good. So let's look at some yarn.
By the way, Mitch apparently also felts.
Mitch does felt because he has taken classes with Chris Hall.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's good.
Small world.
So we dyed these mini skeins. So I'm going to show you some of these mini skeins. This one is coffee. So that's a coffee dyed Topsy. What kind of wool? What kind of yarn is this?
It's 100% wool. Well, it looks like it's actually 3-ply. It's their thicker stuff. Yeah, it's just 100% wool. Which wool is very happy
that is
to dye.
That's 2-ply. When you unpull it.
Well, I know what they call. Okay, so
it's not the actual ply.
Yeah,
it's
in
just
Britain,
the thickness
that's
of it.
what they call it. Is the thickness.
Because you wouldn't want to make it.
At one time, it would have been specifically 2-ply and 3-ply, but yeah.
So this one here.
I'm getting used to
see if I can actually get close to it, because this one here is from the blue spruce, and it's this great gray color, and it's kind of got like yellowy and green and blue tones kind of in there a little bit. It's just neat the way it catches the light, and I don't think this camera is really capturing it very well. But anyway, there's the coffee, and there's the blue spruce.
It's the nice thing with natural dyes, they always seem to go together. You know, like it doesn't matter what color you've dyed it out of a natural thing, you could put them all together and they're harmonious.
This is the red basil. Now the red basil didn't take like you would expect. There's a bit of a yellowy tone in there, but it's pretty subtle. This one, which is the echinacea, didn't take at all. So like we were saying, it might have been the alum, or maybe the mordant. Like
if you were just
it's hard to really say. But
okay,
this
so
almost.
What color is echinacea supposed to be?
Well, I don't know. Because it came out like this.
So he's never used it before. I'm curious. I was curious if there's like, if he had samples, like this is what it normally turns out. Like red basil is normally, is it red or is it just a green?
Yeah, I don't even know. I'm not even sure. But this came out almost, we were laughing because it's almost, well, I mean, you wash it all before you put it in the dye. You get all the oils and stuff out. And then once it's dyed, you wash it again to get all the, you know, leftover dye out, and so it's probably like whiter than when it went in.
So did you guys intentionally, because Topsy yarns are quite heavy with oil, like the lanolin. Did you guys actually intentionally try to get the lanolin off before you dyed it?
Yeah, they were washed. Really well.
Washed? Oh, okay.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, because there doesn't feel like there's any lanolin left in it. Because when the ones in the store, even though they're dyed Topsies, like they still feel like they've got a fair amount of lanolin.
Well, the blue spruce was feeling a little tacky when it came out of the dye.
Right.
And we were like washing it and stuff, and that is either due to the lanolin that was still in it or the gum from the spruce.
Oh yeah.
Right. So it's like there's so many variables in natural dyeing. And you might do the exact same thing at another time and get like a different variation of the color. And the red basil, which is this one here, I'm trying to remember, it actually comes out blue. And then if you leave it in long enough, it turns into like a brown. So depending on how long you do it for, it's somewhere between blue to brown. This one is like a buttery yellow almost, a really subtle yellow.
Mm-hmm. So with a slight green cast.
With a slight green cast.
But I was saying to Tim, this would actually make a neat yoke for a sweater.
Right? Like, however that's going to work. Anyway, it was great. And going into it, I'm like, I just want to go to the retreat and enjoy kind of relaxing and knitting and meeting some people, that sort of thing. And Lesley does a lot of dyeing, mostly with acid dyes.
Yeah.
But I'm like, yeah, dyeing, you know, whatever. But now having actually done it, I'm like, it's actually really kind of fun. It's kind of neat. So, we have a bit of a property here which has lots of, what is the problem? Why are you knowing?
You don't get to dye?
No.
You already took over knitting.
I didn't take over knitting. Believe me. Like,
no, I am not sharing my dyes. Not sharing my undyed yarn.
But there's lots of stuff here. We've got, like, I want to try some stinging nettle, actually. I want to see what, you know.
That stuff is evil. Choke cherries, though they got completely, the choke cherry tree got decimated by the birds. And we have black caps.
Anyway, there's lots of stuff here we could play with.
Sumac.
We do have blue spruce. Sumac we have. There's a lot of stuff here we could play with.
Mountain ash, but I don't think.
It's not like I'm going to start dyeing and, like, I'm going to start my own dye brand and start selling yarn. I just am curious to kind of play with it a little bit. We'll see what happens. Okay, so this was actually my
goodie bag.
Goodie bag. I got a goodie bag. And so that was kind of fun. It has a couple of neat yarns in here. This is a Ginger Twist Studio.
That's so pretty.
From Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Ginger's hand-dyed sheepish DK. Color crunchy leaves. It's 100% British blue-faced Leicester.
He obviously was in England. I'm so jealous of everyone who gets to travel.
Look at that. Isn't that great? I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but for now it's sitting in this bag. And this one here,
that one I like,
is the Dye Guy. The dyeguy.ca. Oh, it's just dyeguy.ca.
So he must be Canadian.
Wash It Merino Sport, colorway grainy mustard.
That is perfect grainy mustard. Like, it's got like the little, it's exactly.
Yeah, he must be Canadian. Who is this guy? This guy who dyes.
This one.
Niagara Wine Country. Oh, he's in Jordan Village.
John
Velo.
A horticulturist by training with a recently discovered passion for working with wool and other fibers, he often finds color inspiration in plants, gardens, fabrics, foods, buildings, and other objects.
It'd be funny if you found color inspiration in pants.
Instead of plants.
Anyway, these are great. So, you know, a couple of skins of yarn there. And actually, they look really good with that Indigo Dragonfly, A Brief History of Tim, that gray yarn. And then there's a bunch of stuff in here. It's kind of funny because, like, I've been knitting for 4 or 5 years, I guess. And, you know, the first few years it was kind of like one hat a year. This past year I've been doing a lot more, right? So I've knit a bunch of stuff and I have a bunch of things going in. But I don't have my own things. You know what I mean? So I'm constantly like, do you have a measuring tape there? Can I borrow your, like,
where's the cable needle?
Do you have a cable needle? Where's the thing with the... So anyways, this little kit has, like, you know, a little needle measury thing.
Ruler gauge.
Ruler gauge. A little tape measure, but it also has one of those, like, miniature tape measure ones. Tape measures. There's, like, even a pair of scissors in here because... You lose those ones. No. A little crochet hook so that I can...
You know, that's a brilliant thing because God, you always need a crochet hook to fix stuff.
I know, right?
I'm gonna add that to my goodie bag
And
list.
a little notebook here.
I do goodie bags for all
and a pen and stuff like that. So
I have the same people coming so much. I need to come up with new stuff for the bags.
Yeah, so this was really great for me because now I have some of my own things.
And another project bag.
And another project bag.
It's reasonably manly.
I have found
I like the logo actually. That's kind of cool.
It looks kind of chainmail-y. I have found that I have a lot of projects going in like 1 or 2 bags, so the needles and everything gets jumbled into one thing, and then it gets, so now I can start kind of going, okay, this sweater is going to go in that bag with those
project bags.
Yeah.
Individual projects.
That'll be it. So yeah, it was great.
I've just been carrying mine around my purse. I don't know why. I have
carrying what around?
I just throw this in my purse. It doesn't really have a project bag.
Well, I have a bag, like my tie
my socks
is like one ball of yarn and the thing, so like I don't need a whole bag for that. I can just kind of put it in my
because this, and like I've got more hats on the go, and of course my hats ready to go with all the different yarn. Usually end up, when I'm making one of my crazy hats, I grab like way more yarn than I'm ever going to use, so that as I'm knitting I can go, yep, nope, 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 oh, that one's perfect, as opposed to, so I need bigger bag. But what else have you got? What's that?
Lesley, the whole time I was there, was texting me going, interview some people for the podcast, and I'm like, oh, I'm relaxing, I don't want to let you know.
Gotta keep putting them to work.
So anyways, I did have a nice chat with Mitch Cordeveau from the Millinery Cornerstone Farm, which is this beautiful renovated barn in, well, somewhere near the Quebec border there, Cornwall-ish.
Starts with a C.
He's actually, it says Green Valley here, just up from Lancaster. Anyways, he has this beautiful little shop. I think I will steal some images from his website and put them down here so you can get a taste of it. And so I had a quick chat with him where he discussed his farm and his animals and his shop. And he teaches out of that shop and sells a whole bunch of yarn. And
his brioche that he showed you.
And he showed us a couple of knitted things that he had done, a hat and a shawl that is like phenomenal.
And I don't really, when he says how fast he did it.
Wait till you see this shawl, because it's like, hey, well, when did you start that shawl? Keeping in mind that I started the rigging sweater like sometime last, like January, February or something. No, it wasn't. It was more like
March,
April or something. But anyways, I don't even have a back panel done. You should see this thing that he's. And so, when did you start that? Oh, about 2 weeks ago.
It's got some dedication going on.
Yeah. So anyways, maybe we'll just jump into that interview.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm here with Bitch. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, your farm, your shop?
Sure. I've been knitting and in the fiber kind of arts for about 40 years. And I'm a social worker, and I used it as my outlet kind of thing. And so I did from knitting to weaving to, dyeing yarns and all those kinds of different fiber arts. And just about 5 years ago, I had always wanted to have a shop where I not only, put out my work, but sell yarns and things like that for other people. So I've also, over the last 30 years, on and off, been raising sheep, Angora goats and things for fibers. But it was mostly for my own consumption and, for making things for friends and family and wedding gifts and, things like that. So, but about 5 years ago, I was in between contracts in my social work field, and nothing seemed to be coming my way. And so I took the plunge, and I thought, it's now or never, because I'm not getting any younger. Right. So I gave it a shot now, and I had a 5-year plan all planned out of what stages I would be doing what, and make sure that I'm not overextending myself and getting into debt over my head. So I took it long and slow, and so 5 years later, I thought, still have the farm, and I I do still have some sheep, but not as many as I did at one point, and that's mainly because of the lack of mills to process the yarn, and
Right, yeah.
also the cost. It becomes very prohibitive when you're having to raise the animals and pay for their feed and their vet cares and shearing and cleaning and all that kind of stuff, and then paying pretty high cost for the yarn. So the end price for the customer is very prohibitive. So.
Right.
I've used the yarn. I sold or have sold fleece for hand spinners and people who do those kinds of things. But I ended up using most of my fleece for felting. I do a lot of felting, hats and adornments for hats and brooches and flowers and things like that. So
Right. Okay.
that's what I was mostly using the fleece for.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you were saying earlier you have about 30 sheep?
Yeah, for a while I had about 30. But as my plan evolved and changed, and what I also found is, as you know, when you're in business, it takes up a lot of time, especially these days with social media and online presence and websites and e-commerce and all of that. So, and in order to get established, you have to get out there because you can't just expect that people are going to find you in the middle of nowhere just,
Right, yeah.
because. So I had to do a lot of craft shows and higher-end shows and things like that. So I was on the road a lot. It was really difficult to find somebody that I could rely on to take care of the animals and the farm while I was on the road, and the business as well, and the shop and everything else. So, and my shop is right on the farm. I had in the past had a shop off into like a mini mall kind of thing, sort of what you guys have.
Right.
And I just didn't like it because I was producing a lot of the things, and especially in the off season, you can't just decide, okay, I'll only be open for the summer, that kind of thing, because you can't make a living like that, right? So I found it really difficult to leave the farm every day and go somewhere and then come back at night and then have another 8 hours to put in because you weren't there during the day, right? So I gradually, gone down with my animals, because I used to have horses and cows and all that kind of stuff, because I do a lot of self-sufficiency stuff as well, and smoking and of our food and preserving and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of put that to the side a little bit more to concentrate on my shop, my business, fiber business, because that's really where I like being. I enjoy it. Give me a wall full of colored yarns and I'm happy. So.
Yeah, I will probably steal some images from your website.
Sure.
To edit in with some of this as well.
Sure.
It's such a beautiful shop and stuff.
Okay, thanks.
So how big a property do you have? Like, if you've got...
I have 50 acres. Okay. Prior to that, like, I've been at that location for 15 years, and there's a long story behind why I had to move, and just for work, getting closer, that kind of thing. But at this location, I've been there 15 years. Have 50 acres, probably about, I'd say maybe 20 forested, 30 pasture, that kind of thing. So there's, quite enough room for a lot of pasturing of animals, but it's the time constraint that's really stopping me from continuing on that with that, and the cost of processing the yarn, that kind of thing. So now as I said, I use the fleece for felting a lot, and I do bring in yarns from other Canadian sources as well as around the world. So South Africa and Norway and some of the bigger producers like Peru and Uruguay and things like that. So.
And do you have a shearer come in when it's time to do the sheep? Do you do it yourself at all, or do you...
When I had lots, I brought in a shearer because I use the same shearer for 30 years now, and she can get a sheep done in 3 minutes, and she's done. For me, it takes a good half hour per sheep, and I don't know how shearers do it with their back, but after 2, my back is done, so I gotta wait the next day. I do another 2. So, but as I've gotten down, I've been doing my own shearing, just because. Because it's a little complicated because it's a big ordeal to shear. It's not just the person comes in and we're shearing. You really have to prepare, and if it's going to be rainy the day before, you have to keep all the sheep indoors because you can't shear with fleece and store it because it's going to mold and all that. So there's a lot of preparation, and then she needs her space and a clean board, and then you have to have the people on hand to rustle up the sheep and bring it to her, and then somebody to take the fleeces and put them in the bags and roll them all up. So it's an ordeal. So you have to plan ahead, and sometimes the weather doesn't cooperate, and so this way, by doing it myself, I can do 2 or 3 at a time and go, okay, well, the weather's bad, but I'll do them tomorrow.
Yeah, we had 2 pygmy Angora goats for a little while, and we would just shear them ourselves. But I mean, it was literally with a pair of scissors. Just kind of because to buy a razor or something for just
a couple.
And so that and doing the hooves and stuff, we got good at like grabbing them and sitting them on their butts and keeping them kind of between your knees and stuff. But just having 2 of them was enough.
And I did for a while have Rambouillet sheep, which are basically a merino, a French merino that was in the 17th century was given to the King of Spain, whose cousin was the King of France, gave him a herd of merino, but it was at the King's farm in Rambouillet, so they changed the name of that breed to Rambouillet, but it's basically their cousins, right? So I had those, but they're huge. A ewe is about 150 to 160 pounds, and the ram is almost 200. So to rustle them and sit them on their butt and do their feet, I mean, the thing's as tall as you are. So as I was getting older, I thought, you know what, this is a lot, and they're very skiddy. So if you came in the pen and they wanted to get behind you, like they would break your knees and go through you if they had to. They didn't care, right? So now I do Shetland. I have Shetland sheep. So they're smaller. Ewes are about 80 pounds, and rams are maybe 100, 110 pounds. So a lot more manageable.
And so the one thing I don't understand about, so you would send that to a mill, but not so much anymore, right?
That's right.
The thing I don't understand about mills is you give them your fleece, but then you don't always have control of what's coming back to you.
It depends what mill you use. And so there's some mills, like there's a mill in Prince Edward Island, McCausland's Mill. They've been in operation for over 100 years. And they have a system where if you have 20 or 30 pounds of fleece, you send it to them, they throw it in the batch, and then you take out X amount of pounds of finished yarn, but it's all mixed. It's all from other producers, and the problem with that is Canadian sheep are mostly raised for meat, so in terms of fleece, there's not a lot of care or attention given to fleece. So it's very coarse, it's very brittle, that kind of stuff. So it's not great. It's good for outerwear or things that are not in contact with the skin, but McCausland's will, if you have over 300 pounds of fleece, they will clean the machinery and do yours specifically as a custom order. But 300, that's a lot. When you consider, especially with the Shetland, you're getting maybe, if you're lucky, 5 pounds of fleece per animal. That's a lot of animal, and you can't really keep it for too long. Like a couple of years is okay, but other than that, like the lanolin gets very very brittle, very dry, and so then it just kind of clings, and it's hard to clean off. Yeah, so most of the other mills you can do small batches, but it's very, very expensive.
And so what is the future of that? You know what I mean? Are we going to be able to continue producing Canadian fleece if there's no mills to?
I think we're going to continue, but it's not going to be a very fine yarn. It's going to be more of that, I call it a rustic yarn, because it's basically, when your grandparents maybe, or their grandparents, would knit something. It wasn't with merino like what we're used to and all the fine fibers. It was whatever was available. And oftentimes, like my grandparents, they raised a couple of sheep just so that they would have the fleece to produce stuff for the kids, to get hats and socks and mittens on the kids in the winter. So it wasn't fine, and that's why often today, we'll have customers come in the store and they'll say, "Oh, wool, that's so itchy because I remember I had a sweater," and so they don't understand that wool is as varied as cheeses. There's so many different kinds of cheeses. Well, there's so many different kinds of wools and blends and all kinds of stuff. So you can go from one extreme where it's very coarse and it's pretty much rug yarn, to a fine merino of 18 or 20 microns, which is so soft. It's softer than cotton. So part of what I do, a lot of what I do is actually, you know, educating folks on the different fibers and why it's not all the same. And you know, and even today we have, you know, superwash yarns and things like that. So I'll have, you know, customers who want to do baby stuff.
Right.
And, you know, blankets or little coats for sweaters for babies, and they're looking for acrylics because they figure it's got to be washed. Well, these days there's really no reason for that, because you can have a superwashed wool that is going to be a lot more comfortable on your baby than acrylic, because acrylic is basically plastic, right?
Yeah.
And so with the naturals, even, you know, for babies, it's like it breathes, it keeps warm, it wicks away moisture, so the baby is a lot more comfortable. And you can throw it in the wash and clean it.
Right.
So there's really no more reason for just using acrylic for babies.
Yeah, I liked your analogy earlier about when people talk about wool, they say, you know, hey, that's wool. But I mean, there's so many different kinds. The analogy was cheeses, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you know, there's so many different types of cheese.
Yeah, if you can't find one cheese that you like out of the hundreds and hundreds of cheeses that are out there, there's, you know,
there's no hope for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, yesterday too, you were showing us a couple of your knitted things, the shawl and the hat.
Yeah.
Are you able to grab those quick so we can show
they're right there
them?
in the
That'd be
car.
awesome.
Yeah, and with you know, at the shop, out of my studio, I do a lot of classes too.
Right.
And what I found is when I started 5 years ago, I did a lot of beginner classes, and so now these folks are coming up the ranks, if you will, and are getting better at what they're doing, and they're constantly looking to be challenged. So it challenges me to develop, you know, products or projects using different knitting techniques, a little bit more advanced every time, so that they can grow in their knitting skills as well. And so the latest, you know, that I've found is the brioche knitting, which I really enjoy doing, and the folks are looking forward to. I've got a few brioche classes coming up this fall, but this is going to be, you know, our project. This was actually a yarn that through a dyeing workshop, we actually dyed the yarns. So we did, you know, 3 or 4 different techniques of dyeing, and the bluish color here was just a uniform kind of fat dye as a first technique, so you understand the interaction of the dyes and the vinegars and the acids and whatever. And then inside we did a gradated dyeing, and I thought it was good and looked good, so I just put it together as a brioche hat, and it turned out pretty well. So
Yeah,
this is
I'm gonna bring it up close here. Yeah, I love. So this is like, it was trees. Is that what you?
It's called Little Trees.
Little trees. Yeah, because you can see like little trees, and then inside. I love that it's reversible like that.
Yeah, and that's what I like too about brioche. It's completely reversible, so it's like a negative, you know, negative of what the other side was.
Yeah.
So it's really neat. And so to further the, what I also do a lot is when I get a different yarn in the shop, I'll make a project with that yarn so that folks can see what that yarn's going to look like, you know, what it's going to, because you can do a little swatch, and I do that as well, so they can kind of feel the texture and that. But to actually see a project using that yarn is a lot more visual for them. And so this is a pattern actually that I forget the name of the lady, but it's using a Connie, which is a Danish yarn.
Right. Okay.
And so it's a ombre or variegated, I'm not sure what the technical term is, but if we did just, you know, a swatch of this, you would only get like the one color, and it wouldn't give you the effect of what the whole, so this is like one ball of yarn, if you will, all the same color coming out of the yarn, so of the ball, and then with brioche leaves along the side and the bottom, the top, so, you know. And then again, you know, completely reversible, and you get more of the colored, this one, I believe, is called turning leaves. Yeah.
Turning leaves.
Yeah, so it's very fallish.
And you said you started this about 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, yeah.
It's just crazy.
Yeah, and I kind of sort of knit in between, you know, farm work and hours of business and that kind of thing. But on Friday afternoons, I host a stitch and wine at the shop, and so I have mostly ladies, and a call out to the guys out there who are knitting, like time to come out into the open. But mostly ladies that come out, and we spend a couple of hours, and we're just knitting and talking about different patterns and seeing what people are up to and what people are interested in, and we share a glass of wine, and
nice.
It's all good. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a get together Tuesday nights.
Okay.
But yeah, every now and then another guy will show up.
Okay.
But no, it's just me.
Few and far. Well, and because I do have guys that come to the shop. Like I have a few local guys, and they come to the shop, but they only come to buy the yarn, and so I tell them, it's like, come on out, and why don't you? I said, I'm there, so you won't be the only guy there. Yeah, but I'm yet to see one of them.
Yeah, and I knit. Like, I'll knit anywhere, at the train station or the cafe, or just, sitting at the park or whatever. I don't, it's good.
Yeah, I think the days of it's a woman thing, are pretty, hopefully are pretty gone, or going, I should say. They're not gone, but they're going. Yeah, because I think more and more, which makes sense too, because as you know, knitting was a man's job.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, whenever people are surprised to see me knitting as a guy, and they know anything about knitting themselves, I ask them if they've heard of the Kitchener stitch.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because,
a what?
Yeah. Kitchener was, what was he, a general, or the story behind it?
Yeah.
Oh, now I'm going to flub this because I can't remember the entire story. But the Kitchener stitch was a stitch that was okay, Zan, come here. What are you doing? Come here. He's not going to come over.
There's something bugging him in the bush.
Hilarious. It was the guys were all blowing through their socks. Right, so he taught his troops how to, knit a particular, whatever it was, the heel or the. I'm butchering this story so badly.
Yeah, but, you'll have to tape it separately.
Yeah. A close up on me standing in a different environment. But yeah, anyways, that was a guy teaching his army troops how to knit so that they could keep socks on their feet. So, anyways.
Well, and my father was from a family of 11 kids, and he was one of the older ones, and his mom taught him how to knit because my grandmother couldn't knit hats and toques and socks for 11 kids, and herself and my grandfather, so somebody else had to kick in. So my dad was the one, and knit up stuff for the kids, for the younger kids coming up. Yeah. So it was something out of necessity.
So you said you've been knitting for 40 years.
Yeah, I started when I was 16 or 17, yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, I started when I was 4.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's great. Thank you so much for, telling us a little bit about your farm. What's the name of the farm?
Cornerstone Farm.
Cornerstone Farm.
Yeah, out in Glengarry County, Green Valley, Ontario.
All right, we'll put a little link on the little description area.
Yeah, nice.
All right, well, thank you.
Okay, well, you're welcome. Very good.
So yeah, there you go. That was Mitch Corvo, and at the Millinery Cornerstone Farm. And
I hope you got some good shots of the log cabin in the video, did you?
There's a couple shots which we have already seen because I added them in here and there during the first segment.
Oh, there you go.
So it's already done.
So if anyone wants an F-bomb, email me.
Yeah, hope.
We'll see you at Twist if you're coming. We're leaving
Twist
tomorrow. We're leaving tomorrow, and we'll be there all weekend for the August weekend. Crazy, crazy. It's going to be intense.
Yeah.
But it's Friday, all day, half day Friday, 12 to 5, all day Saturday, and all day Sunday. So we'll be in Saint-André-Avelin near Montebello, Quebec. And we are going to be drinking some wine in the evenings. Tim's coming with me.
During the show?
No. No, it's usually pretty hot, but apparently they have air conditioning this time, so we're hopeful. It's been too hot in the arena.
It's actually my The dog. It's actually my first time at Twist, so it'll be kind of fun. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see 3 people in a minivan with all the display walls and all the yarn stuffed into it, and then we have to meet one of my suppliers in Ottawa and get another bunch of yarn on the way because she's got my order ready. Shirley Bryan, thank you, Becky. So it's gonna be, yeah, it's gonna be full to the rafters and on the roof. I hope it doesn't rain. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Take care, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.